All right.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our fourth annual Tech Week and our first, hopefully, annual on the new webinar platform, which is definitely a new platform. So, fortunately, it just seems to heighten the anticipation of really the amount of legendary status that we have on the webinar. Not that we're of advancing years, certainly, but we are, we have some really esteemed guests here today for the official kickoff of Tech Week. So I'd like to introduce guest number one, my main man from Utah, Mr. John McBride, drone industry guru, I believe is the official title now, John. So
Yeah.
welcome.
It's drone industry guru. I'll take that.
Excellent.
I thought it was drone Jesus. But...
Well, it's like overplayed.
Exactly. And so we're also joined by another industry legend, live from somewhere in Texas, Chief Wayne Baker, most recently of DJI. Chief, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, thank you. Great to see you both again.
It is, and hopefully we'll get to catch up live later when we get a chance at AVSI or some of the other conferences. Anyway, so for today, just a quick update. John was here at the beginning of Tech Week 4 years ago, which we started during the height of the pandemic when we couldn't actually do conferences, and it's changed and evolved over the years. We went, I think year one, John, we had just had manufacturers kind of talking about their products and things like that. We had a number of different testing. I think we had an early Autel, which I believe at the time I might have commented that it was maybe the best small SUAS available at the time, which was sacrilegious, and so we'll see how that goes. And then it's evolved. We started to evolve more. Industry people tried to involve some customers and do a bunch of different things. And so really what we're looking at this week is to give you an opportunity to hear from some people that are very involved in the industry without having a big sales pitch, and really get a chance to actually see some of these things happening live. So if we go through the rest of the week, tomorrow will be kind of a public safety day. We'll be leading off with some people call him Chief Baker Light. He also wears a cowboy hat. Brandon Carr, formerly of Pearland, Texas Police Department. And he'll talk about some of their advanced DFR operations. We had Chula Vista Captain Fox, who's tremendous, on last year. And you can see that link. We'll put it in the chat and on social media if you want to see what Captain Fox had to say last year. We're actually going to have a live multi-country demo of not only the DJI dock systems, but also the Hextronic systems with a number of different platforms tomorrow. So you'll get to actually see this functional, and you'll get a sneak peek inside the warehouse where we have, I think we have like 5 different docks back there. It's kind of crazy. So that'll be pretty exciting. Wednesday, we're looking at some larger operations. We got our partners from Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, who will be, Laurent will be interviewing them for heavy lift, long range BB loss. So all kinds of cargo delivery, some really sophisticated sensors. And then we have the legendary Ted Strasmiri, who's going to be talking about our kind of fixed wing comparison, particularly with the new LiDAR units, which we're looking forward to. And then Thursday, Throwdown Thursday, always controversial. We get all the platforms in there. They're going head to head. They're doing the testing. We'll see whose kung fu shall remain supreme, and that'll be kind of a small one in the morning, and in the afternoon we're going to revisit the blue SUAS Throwdown. So we'll get to see Skydio and Vantage and Teal and Parrot battle it head to head in the afternoon too, which is always very exciting. And then Friday will be our innovation day. So we're going to be focusing on 3 wonderful innovators: Suncor, Ontario Power Generation and Hydro-Quebec will be talking about how they're applying things to their organization. So you can sign up for one or all of those. The replays will be available on there for your interest as well. So enough of me yapping away. We have two fabulous panelists here, and so I'm going to throw the questions over to you two fine gentlemen. I think we're going to start with you, John. So, John, you've been in this business for a long time. What's really the biggest change that you've seen in the industry over the past? Let's arbitrarily say 5 years. What's been the biggest change for you?
I think just general technology moving forward. We've got better sensors that are smaller. We're not seeing sizes like M600 aircraft really being the day-to-day operations. I think that's kind of a huge tribute to the technology as we push forward. So just technology in general. We've got better software that's able to do better things. We've seen the ability for the minimization of having multiple different programs, different hardware, everything's kind of, manufacturers are trying to put it all into one solution or one suite. We've been pushing this for a very long time, Kevin, is just like, trying to get all the right pieces together to have an organization work with the drone, but it gets very confusing. And so to see these opportunities come about with the manufacturers to create a one-stop shop kind of an idea, both with DFR now, which is now on the rise, and what those things are contributing to, and then as well as the small UAS and being able to process imagery, process projects really quick. So the other expansion I think that we're kind of getting into is more of the regulatory stuff. So trying to get everybody on the same page, doing the same things, requiring, standardization within the industry. Hopefully that develops a little bit more, but that's, 5 years ago, we were still just kind of doing whatever. So we've kind of got a foundation started with both 107 regs here in the US, Transport Canada trying to come up with certain ways to do their commercial ops versus, fun hobby stuff. And so we're going to see this continue to graduate as we go along in the next, hopefully 5 years. We've got baselines that hit, we follow the same thing, we do the same thing, and we see development as we go on. So that's what I've seen in the last 5 years.
Fantastic. All right, Chief, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think some of the great that John mentioned that are great to see is that we went from, it's been a little longer than 5 years, but as he talked about DFR, that it was first conceptualized by a lot of people, and then now to see it actually coming about and happening. I was on a panel last year in Vegas, and we had FX, we had Fritz, ACSL, and Brink on there, and we were talking about how DFR was happening. And what I didn't know was 5 years to the day, I had been on a panel with Romeo and others, and we talked about DFR then. So 5 years later, it was happening. So it's great to see that is finally, it's great to see that over the last couple of years, a lot of things we dreamt of happening are happening. So, the fact that the technology, while still evolving, has gotten to a point where it's getting utilized in more and more industries now. The equipment has come about, as John mentioned, of a platform that can do many different things. So it can be, instead of buying this piece of equipment and this one and a drone, and now you can buy one drone that will meet the needs of more than one industry. So I think that's another thing that's been great to see. Hopefully my video is evening out some.
All right. So I think it's great. Well, that's one thing that hasn't really changed in 5 years is our video Our video technology seems to always be full of surprises. So excellent. Well, listen. So I think you talked about a few key themes there, and we talk about different manufacturers and things like that. You mentioned ACSL. We love Cynthia and Francisco, both former DJI colleagues of yours, Wayne, which is great. You talked about Brink, and obviously they've been doing some really interesting stuff as well. And so John used to be with Autel. There's a lot of things. But right now, one of the things that I think, as we start to come and bring this into present day, one of the things is certainly going to be all the brouhaha around Chinese platforms and what's going to happen with regulations and what should happen, what shouldn't happen, why are we here and why are we doing this? So I think it's probably a good way to start as we talked about what's gonna happen moving forward. So Chief, I'll kind of throw it over to you since you're sort of speaking for DJI a little bit in this. So what's your take on all this push to ban Chinese drones?
I think the biggest issue is the damage it is causing to the industry as a whole, or could cause. There's a lot of people that have built businesses utilizing a product that met their needs. And I think it's unfortunate that we're seeing people try and legislate safety that say that they shouldn't be legislating safety in one hand, but are in another. They're removing that freedom of choice from the customer, which is disappointing to see as well. And all from unfounded, non-factual based reasons. Nobody else has been. And we have numerous studies, including by the Department of Defense. Granted, it was squashed the next day because it didn't fit the political narrative, but showing that there aren't issues with our equipment. And I think the problem where I say it's damaging to the industry is it's showing the technology in a bad light, number one. Number two, people without a full understanding of the technology are only having their fears and apprehensions emboldened by misleading or false information about the technology and what it can and can't do. And that is a disservice to all drone manufacturers, not just one. And it doesn't matter what country of origin it is. I think it's damaging to the industry again as a whole. And I think that's really unfortunate, especially when you see products out there like DJI products that are saving lives. And I don't just mean in public safety, I mean in other industries saving lives. And it just kind of goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago. For me, it's great to see the innovation in other products and other products getting, now 640 thermal cameras, better flight time, on products that aren't DJI, non-DJI, because I think there should be a diversity of manufacturers out there, a diversity of choice. It helps bring about more competition, which fuels that market. So there's a right way, I feel like, for the market to correct itself in a wrong way, and unfortunately, I think we're seeing it the wrong way.
Okay, fair assessment. So, John, you have kind of a unique perspective on this. You worked with Autel for a number of years. You've been independent. You've worked with RMUS. God bless you. So you've kind of seen it all, and now you have the ability to be kind of neutral on this. What are your thoughts about all this?
Well, it's really hard to pick on one manufacturer when we look at how many different Chinese manufacturers there are, inclusive of Autel. Currently there's about 50 different drone manufacturers in China that make drones, and then there's some that make OEM parts to those drones. There's some that actually manufacture pieces that come over here that are incorporated into our drones. So to pick on one company is really, I just don't think it seems very un-American. At the end of the day, it seems very un-American to say, hey, we have one company that's killing it with the technology, killing it with the manufacturing, killing it with the engineers, so much so that every company thereafter is modeling their aircraft off of them. Every single one compares to DJI. Every single one says, well, if it's not like a DJI, then it's not good enough. And when you've set that, and I've said this a million times, set that gold standard. DJI has a gold standard now of out of the box experience, how they're handling customer service, how they're handling the quality of the equipment, the cost of the equipment, and the availability of the equipment. They've standardized what a manufacturer should be doing for the customer all the time. Now, if other companies are not doing those things, or they're struggling to do it and not penetrating the market or getting sales, and the only way to attack them is by legal means instead of, making up fear-mongering crap, I just don't quite understand why we have to do it that way. Get better with your tech. I put it all the time in my posts. Win with your tech, not with your lobbyists, So if you have technology that is absolutely making a difference and your manufacturing is capable of meeting the requirements that the gold standard is at now, great. There shouldn't be any reason why we couldn't keep that competition and continue to do so, even with DJI still selling stuff. However, when the only option for investors is to get rid of the competition because their technology isn't good enough, their stuff isn't the best price, it isn't the best performing. Well, why would you force people to purchase that? Why would you force our public safety guys, force industry, force anybody to have to do that rather than having them, as Wayne said, make a choice? And we're eliminating the choice. Again, very un-American, if you ask me. So, all of a sudden one day we just have it in for Toyota. Toyota's killing the market. No more Toyotas in this country anymore. We can't sell Toyotas because they're doing nefarious things with their vehicles or cars. There's so many people that rely on that particular brand or that particular thing. And we don't do that in any other industry, but in this one, we're going down that road. And I think it sets a bad precedence for future companies. So even if we eliminate, one more second, even if we eliminate DJI completely from the thing, what happens when the other now, companies are battling with each other and trying to get market share? And then what do? We start attacking them and start pushing laws against them and do it. All you're hurting is the end users. You're just hurting us. It doesn't hurt, it hurts us at the end of the day. So I don't know. We'll see how it continues.
I think it's an important point, and I know obviously, a lot of our listeners are up here in Canada, and we don't have the same thing, but unquestionably there's going to be a couple in certain government departments that are facing the same challenge, which is if the US does it, then should we do it? And we're reading the same, frankly, usually not very accurate reports online. And I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and I think when we go through, I have the question for you, Wayne. Obviously, down in Texas, so Texas is not exactly like going to be throwing massive parties for China at any time soon. I don't think. No disrespect to anybody in Texas or China, but realistically, what percent of public safety agencies in the state of Texas are using DJI products successfully, or Autel? Throw both of them in there. What percentage are actually Chinese right now? Is it 90%?
Oh, I would say it's up there. I don't know exactly, but I would say a vast majority of agencies in Texas use either DJI or Autel for ease of use, for cost, for return on investment, as far as capabilities. And I'll tell you this: I was at a department last week, talking to the IT manager for the city came out, who is former U.S. Army, and that was in the Army. That was his specialty, was network technology and defense, and right off the bat, as soon as he found out I worked for DJI, and I mentioned, yeah, you guys probably can't fly these because your proximity to a military base, and he was like, no, we can mitigate all that. I'm not worried about that. That was coming from U.S. former Army IT director for a city. And he already immediately was like dismissive, saying it's easy to mitigate any issues we have. And that's before we get into the fact that there are ways to mitigate it, like local data mode and just simply not even connecting the drone to the internet. So that's where in Texas, we have seen countless agencies who already have to follow strict data security guidelines go ahead, follow those and use them. And why it is, Texas has kind of led the way in a lot of ways with drones and utilizing them. And then I'll just say one more thing on why a lot of Texas agencies utilize DJI or Autel is because they add another layer of protection when they use DroneSense or another software like them. I mentioned DroneSense because they're Texas based. So, Texas is a good use test bed for them, as well as proof of the fact that you can add another layer of that data security in there. And so that's where we see, Pearland with Brandon Carr, you're going to have on tomorrow, and others across the state, that when I talk to them and find out what drone they use, a lot of times find out they're using third-party software as well to help mitigate any concerns they might have with any manufacturer, not just, as John said, not just one manufacturer. They should be doing this due diligence with any drone that they purchase.
Correct. And I think that's a great point. And just to kind of circle around, I don't want to dwell too much on this. I want to talk about moving forward a lot, but I think it's fascinating, some of the, the second and third order effects on this. And again, for RMUS, we see everything. And as you'll see later on the week, we see everything, and we fly all of these things and test them out. And so it's pretty exciting. And right now, it's kind of funny to say, but outside of China, like the Europeans are kind of kicking butt with the innovations in Europe. The European drone companies with no money and no whining are already producing better stuff at at half the price or even a third of the price. Like they're competing with the best products, which, as we're going to see Thursday, are still overwhelmingly Chinese. And I think that's a real loss to the US drone industry. And don't even get me started about the state of the Canadian drone manufacturing industry, although we have a few like Pegasus that are doing some cool stuff. But for the most part, they're just saying, oh, unless I can raise hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital money, I just can't compete, which is total BS. All these guys that are making stuff, and committing to unfortunately conflicts in Ukraine and things like that are showing that you absolutely can do this with very little money and some great engineering. And so it's going to be the loss of the US drone industry. And so I hope it kind of goes away. But anyway, enough of that stuff. Let's talk about it. I mean, let's talk about some of these new platforms maybe that are coming out here that we're excited about. And I know, Chief, you mentioned ACSL. We love Francisco and Cynthia. That's a great product, made in Japan by Yamaha. So this is somebody that can scale really, really quickly. We got Gremsy in Vietnam making NDAA compliant stuff. So it's a lot of exciting stuff. So John, from your secret new career with the droning company, you get to see stuff too. What are you excited about, moving forward? What are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I think collaboration is going to be the key here. I think that I've been to a lot of countries over the last couple of years and seeing these different operations going on there. I did get an email about my last interview, to kind of address that it's a lot easier to fly in other countries than it is to fly here in the U.S. And I say that as a generalization, being that there's still a lot of little silly things we have to do in order to just get one flight done for the day, and that kind of inhibits the growth, when we've got a lot of, ask daddy, mommy might say yes, but daddy's going to say no kind of concept. Here in other countries, we just kind of, here it is, do these things, off you go, and make sure you're staying as safe as possible. And so, the collaboration of countries working together, we at the U.S., yes, tend to drive some of these regulatory copycat kind of things going. Like you said, Canada might not be very, worried about this DJI thing at this time, but if all of a sudden that happens in the U.S., then kind of gets kind of spread across the world. And there's already people that are, again, doing drone deliveries 100 times a day in Sao Paulo, Brazil. They're, and they're doing this company here just doing hundreds of them. And there's no one having thrown a fit. Nobody's freaking out. Nobody's like had to cut skin off their arm to make it happen. They've already proven, shown, and has hit a lot of the thresholds of safety and keep continuing to do so to build that data. That collaboration with companies here in the U.S. to then prove that, bring it here, show that it's working. That's what I hope to see a little bit more, and that what we drive a little bit more. The other one is our, us being ArmUS, a reseller, is that we have a lot of people that sell the same things. They're showing the same things, they're doing the same thing, all putting it out there in front of the same, but the messages are always kind of mixed, and I think that would be also a great thing to see, is the working with resellers and those that are, communicating training and certification and things like that are all following, again, kind of a baseline, way to conduct business, so to speak. We can always say, and I know I'm, valedictorian of ArmUS, but I could always say we did it the best, Kevin. We always did it the best, but that was from the lens of ArmUS. You start to go outside and of course that's, maybe they're doing a little bit better than we did in certain, aspects. And maybe these guys just suck at what they do. But however, the dealers have a profound responsibility, and the manufacturers that work with them, to try and get this equipment out there, to get through the mucky mess of purchasing and buying and using and continually training, continually showing that there is ROI. And I hope to see a little bit more collaboration there, because all of these dealers down, I just got back from Colombia, man, they're hand holding together, trying to achieve the same goal: drone use, drone capabilities, and showing that there's value to continue using this stuff. So hopefully we see a little bit more of that here in the future.
Okay, fantastic collaboration. So Chief, what about you? Did I hear that you're going to officially launch the M400 here today? Is that, or was that just that? That's
No, it's the Phantom 6 and the Avata Dock, or I don't know.
I can't swing the camera, but Wayne already sent one to me. It's sitting over here in the corner. Don't tell anyone.
Actually, the Avata Dock would be cool. I kind of like that idea. I hope DJI product teams watching that one. Sign us up for those. Anyway, so Chief, what are you excited at with DJI or outside of DJI, whatever you want?
Well, I'd say we've had some really good things coming from us the other day to Dock 2. I was able to go and see that firsthand with Grant, setting it up at a site. And, I like Dock 1, but I can just see so much more versatility with Dock 2, with its size, the platform, now everything you got with Dock 1, as well, I'll call it now in a small platform is just going to be tremendous to see. I also have to say I'm excited to see ACSL and what they're coming up with. I think we've got some I know some interesting things from Brink that I hope to see come out pretty soon. I'm real excited to see the industry progressing and not anybody chasing each other. They got this, so now we have to come out with it. Now it's, hey, we're coming out with this, and other people sit back and go, okay, that's what we want to see, is that other manufacturers coming up with things that again, like I said earlier, fuel the market. And now it's not just one company pushing products out that others are looking to follow up with. So, other things I'm looking forward to is, again, that delivery, like John was mentioning. We've got to start getting that going, because I, for a few years now, have been waiting on Whataburger. I saw they were doing deliveries in the Houston area by drone, and I'm just lazy enough that would be great if I could get my Whataburger to my house by drone, and I don't have to go anywhere, so I could gain some more weight.
Well, you can never have too many Whataburgers, so that's I think that's a noble pursuit. Not to mention, supplies, medical supplies to rural communities, and
Absolutely.
wildfire replenishment. So it's pretty cool. There's some fantastic projects going on up here in we have a lot of forest up here, as you may have noticed. And so there's some fascinating projects going on here in Ontario and Alberta around utilizing the technology for wildfire replenishment. And, one of the cool things I didn't know, not being an expert in there, but, 45 pounds is a lot of fire retardant. And you can, as a fire chief, Wayne, you would probably know that you could do some pretty good stuff with with a drone that's able to drop that. So I think we're going to see a lot of innovations in that area.
Yeah, and
Sorry, Wayne.
And one thing we have is the new fly cart. When it can carry weights at distance. We're talking around 75 pounds. What is it, around 10 miles, if I remember right? I'm trying to do my meters and kilometers to feet and mile conversion in my head. I'm not as good as the Canadians at that, but yeah, the fly car. I just real quick touch on a couple of weeks ago. I got to go to Cable, Wisconsin, to the American Birkebeiner ski race, and we set up to be able to deliver just an AED to anyone along that course in case there was sudden cardiac arrest. But like you talked about medical supplies, we were limited on weight load with the aircraft we were using, it Matrice 350 at the time. But looking forward, if we could utilize, say, a fly cart to carry all the medical equipment at an event like that, so that it can speed up the mobility of the EMS personnel, so their concentration is just getting to the patient, not trying to get them in their equipment, and maybe even have that equipment ahead of them arrive, that bystanders can start to use, would be tremendous. So yeah, a lot of great things along those lines.
Sense. Okay. So John, I mean, we talk about different uses of new technologies and exciting stuff. You were kind of the godfather of the Dragonfish fixed wing VTOL in North America, and obviously, I think I commend you on behalf of the industry of putting together. You mentioned it before, like a really serious training program for that. That I wish everybody would kind of adopt that kind of attention to detail. But let's go back for the new thing. I mean, ultimately, specifically to public safety, but others, there's a lot of helicopters and fixed wing manned aircraft that are being used. But it's been a bit of a challenge getting people to see the value of fixed wing VTOL UAS for a lot of those public safety applications. So what were some of the challenges that you saw had to be overcome, and then how were people successfully deploying that technology in those types of missions?
Well, the first time I saw the Dragonfish, they brought it here to Utah. So, as the first video that we had ever done with RMUS, interviewing the staff when they came and showed us that aircraft. And I say this often, again, it's very hard to impress me with stuff that people's like, hey, we made this thing and it's amazing. Great. It looks like so and so's and such's, and it's pretty much the same old. What does it really solve is being the problem. And with my previous experience with VTOL, prior to seeing the Dragonfish fly, one of the biggest challenges is always just the wind and the weather, being able to deploy those things and then being able to fly them in a manner in which we know that it's shaped like an airplane, and aerodynamically they're going to have serious challenges trying to do things while shaped in that shape, so downwind, upwind travel, trying to come in and land and take off in windy conditions, and still being able to pinpoint a spot. The fact that the Dragonfish itself was highly impressive to me, because I've put it in some very precarious things, and sometimes intentionally, to see, what level of failure would happen. So we remember when I came up there and flew in Canada, we were flying at your shop there, and it was sleet, sideways, cold outside. We're standing underneath the tent. Dragonfish is out there soaking wet. We send it. She's just operating right next to your shop there, and it performed flawless. Returned to home. She comes back. She lands exactly within 6 inches of where she took off from. And I just was overblown by the overall performance of the bird. Now the one thing is that it takes away the piloting portion of it. So when I have to explain to people that we don't use a dual system because the piloting is being done by the Dragonfish, it's making the decisions it needs to do in order to acquire the target or whatever you want to see on the ground. It is really based in and basically designed for ISR, while other VTOLs I've seen, the Wingtra, the Quantum, the Tron anyway, and the Trinity, really made for mapping. So their conditions have to be, their flight conditions, environmental conditions have to be perfect for those conditions. They cannot fly in the precarious crap that we're going to fly in, after a hurricane. Why would they do that in the first place? They're mapping. They're not making decisions as real time. You're looking at that screen and deciding real time. Is that an overturned vehicle that I need to respond to? Is that a guy running through a backyard that I need to inform my other officers where he's at? That you're making real-time decisions like that. Is that guy on the beach? Is there a shark in the water? Real-time stuff. You're not trying to map it and make it pretty. And that's kind of the thing about the Dragonfish. Now, I've seen other VTOLs, again, advancing and getting a little bit better. But I was flying this weekend in Santa Cruz, California, and we had some pretty bad weather come in, and we had a huge aircraft, not throwing anything underneath AeroVironment, but it's a big bird. Their Jump 20 is very large, it does pretty much the same missions, except distance. It can fly a lot longer. They opted not to fly, so Dragonfish is out there cruising around, doing their stuff, and we had no problem operating all day long with the crew down there and training. So, I hope to see that VTOLs are, kind of push their way into utilizing over helicopters, which are expensive, and fixed wing, manned aircraft, which are expensive and hard to coordinate. But, I've seen the Dragonfish is pretty awesome. If you've not seen one in our audience and you have a chance to see one, and I need some flying in Canada. I keep saying that, Kevin. I need the fire guys up there.
Well,
man,
it's certainly flown. There's certainly flown, and there's some really exciting products, platforms in the space. And I think so the number one thing is just really getting people to see the value of it. We've got some pretty exciting tests where they're combining it with drone in the box technology for
it's still one of the more expensive VTOLs, if you want to call it that. But again, the mission that the Dragonfish does versus the mapping missions, where you really don't need to worry about tracking and all, all of that is not built into those systems. So, the cost is still fairly high for a lot of agencies, but currently right now, I have 41 flying here in the United States that are actively doing things here and there. So, and then we've got plenty down in other countries as well. Just need like at least 5 flying in Canada. I'm going to poke you in the eye one more time,
Excellent. All right. Well, listen, so I'm going to have one more question. So if you have any questions for our panelists, we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So just pop them in the chat or the Q&A panel right now, and then we'll share your additional questions with the guys. And so last kind of question, I think we'll start with you. We'll start with you, John. So really, as we start to develop and implement the drone in the box technology, what kinds of like new use cases, both within public safety and within infrastructure inspection, whatever, what are some really exciting use cases that you see as now becoming a lot more viable?
Well, the drone in the box concept is awesome. I mean, we definitely apply it to certain verticals. DFR specifically is drone first responder. That's what that means. That means it's going to be for that public safety vertical. It's stationed at a police station. A call comes in, it goes and heads out, eyes first on whatever's going on, to prepare the incoming Leos or fire people on what's going on with the situation. So that's great. A response type vehicle that can get out, observe, and see what's going on, and then give that information back to command so that they can be prepared or respond correctly. However, in the inspection and routine things, that's where I see the most value. When we have oil refineries and we have lines that need to be inspected, and we're just routinely doing that. Well, it's not always a routine thing to do it from a location that's like you've got 5 miles of line each direction. That's as far as the ship can go. So you need one there. 10 miles down the road, you need another one. 10 miles down the road, you need another one. So depending on the range, of course, of the drone in the box, I'm hoping to see that we kind of get a little bit better with our flight times. We get a little bit better with our optics, and we get a little bit better with the capabilities of that. And that's where I see hopefully a bit more growth with the everyday routine things that we do. However, even the non-routine things that we do, where we've got these things stationed and holding out in a spot to do, inspections. I think the routine delivery. So just a personal story, my son was diagnosed with leukemia back in 2018, and we had to take him up to the university here in Utah. And we've talked about delivering things, but routine routes that drone in the boxes can do, load up, off you go, whether we're right there to deliver blood samples and tissue samples and things around a very busy operating space that these things just run routine routes to get the samples back and forth in a very small locale doesn't necessarily mean I need my Whataburger yet. I don't, but without, I wish I could order a Whataburger while I was sitting there waiting to figure out what was going on with my son. But overall, it's a university. The only way to get things back and forth really is by vehicle, and it's very busy in places like that. So seeing more delivery type things with corridors that are very common. We don't have to worry about helicopters coming in with stuff. I'm hoping that we see that. I hope that that's what we drive to see, and as well, they're already doing this in other countries. I'm just saying they're already doing this. It's just, how are we doing it here in the U.S.? And when are we going to start doing that every day, all day? So yeah.
Fantastic. So Chief, question for you. What do you think, based on what you're seeing out in the field there, what do you think our customers, end users, public safety in particular, what are they looking for now? What's the next thing where they want to see the technological leap?
I would say it's that ability for autonomous beyond visual line of sight for drone as a first responder program or other inspection capabilities, I will once again take the opportunity to once again let everybody know I'm still fighting for an enterprise Avata or Mini, but we still are having a hard time getting that use case across. There's finite resources when it comes to our R&D and our engineering there. So I understand. While we want this product, it's do we want our other ones to remain good or get improved, or have issues that could come up that take longer to get resolved because we've spread our resources out too much. But the other is I know as an industry that one of the next big things we'll see is aircraft that are drones that are going to be carrying people. And that's again goes with what John talked about. Now we need those corridors established and the regulatory issues worked out there. But I'm interested to see that coming about in the future. So a lot of different things I think we see coming up. It's just, and a lot of it is the technology. Going again to John's point, the technology's there. It's getting the regulations there, getting the regulatory side to be able to work with it. So we'll see.
Flying long range from a location has been done for a long time. We've been doing that forever. I mean, I remember making my first, but now we call it, FPV. We didn't call it that because nobody really called it that. But, making long range systems that could do 10 miles was pretty easy to do 20 years ago. And now it's gotten a little bit more of the foundation principles on flying FPV to do certain jobs. And we see that, the improvement of even DJI making the digital FPV was absolutely astounding compared to anything analog and the analog stuff we were using back in the day. Now we'll bring back Ukraine. Ukraine is definitely using FPV drones to, put munitions on and do things. And these are not returnable products. They have a one-way delivery. And so they're going to try to do that as cheaply as possible. They don't want to spend $10,000 on a drone to deliver, something like that. So we're seeing even warfare change the way that they're doing that, the way that the everyday cop is managing, what they're doing with drones. We're seeing how the industry folks are managing, their drone programs and what they're doing. And I'm really excited for the future. I'm really excited.
Right. Thanks, John. So we have a question in there. If there's any more questions just before we wrap up, fire it in the chat box.
Yes.
So
questions.
Yes, we love them. So we've got somebody's asking, we'll be using a Teal 2 application, would be better suited for dragonfish or similar, but there's the whole blue SUAS restrictions. Are there any comparable platforms on the horizon that might meet the blue SUAS specs, given it's unlikely Autel will ever end up on the list? So I'll kind of handle that one. I'll answer the second part of your question. So if personally, I don't think Autel would get sold, but if I was someone with a lot of money, I would buy Autel, who's at this point DJI's only real competitor. I would buy them as a U.S. entity, manufacture everything in Vietnam or Taiwan, NDA compliant, where they could scale it, and then I would single-handedly wipe out all the U.S. Drone manufacturers by doing that. However, I don't think you could actually buy that. So the second part of that is NDA compliant versus blue. You got to be very careful with blue. Blue is something from the US DIU that was for a very specific program, and many, including people in Canada, have just taken that as the de facto standard. Almost nobody actually needs blue, right? What they would actually need is NDA compliant, which is a supply chain issue, and there are several to many NDA compliant platforms that are not on the blue list. So if you're cynical, the blue list was a bit of a money grab. If you're not cynical, then it was a much needed step forward, but there are other things. So to your specific question about fixed wings, other than the Dragonfish, we're biased towards the Delta Quad Evo. It's in our opinion the best fixed wing VTOL platform out there for those uses. 4.5 hour flight time, really good price point, lots of sensor options. Quantum also makes a couple of platforms, as John said. They're kind of mixed use platforms for a lot of them. The Wingtra has a converted mapping platform that is actually blue as well. So there is an option with Wingtra, and then Senslai, although it's not a VTOL, is blue. So and then I guess we should also include FlightWave on there as well. FlightWave is a blue SUAS 2.0. It's a much smaller platform, but again, significantly cheaper. So the good news is there's a lot of options. Secondarily to that, I'll give a shout out to the Brits, our friends at Evolve Dynamics. Their SkyManus platform, the new SkyManus 2 platform, I'm being told might have a 75-minute flight time. And it's a relatively high speed platform. So all of a sudden, if you are able to do that with a quad, they're starting to look at different scenarios where they would normally use a fixed wing that they'll use a quad, and that's not even getting into somebody like Harris Aerial or something that has hybrid platforms that are quads that fly for hours and hours. So yeah, Malcolm. So that was I think a rather long-winded answer to your question, but the good news is you have opportunities.
I wanted to embellish a little bit on the blue versus NDAA. This is why Skydio can still have Chinese manufactured batteries. Their X10 uses Chinese batteries. They're made in China. It says it right there on their X10, battery set. They're still able to comply because of the NDAA. Blue, as you said, Kevin, is much different than NDAA. And so if your agency is kind of challenged with, we can only buy blue, there's some people that just are very uneducated in that space on why the money for blue is what it means. Money is being asked for, and only blue is the way that they can get said money. Whereas Dragonfish, as I had mentioned, we have 44 of them flying here in the United States. They didn't go through the blue ticket way. They went and asked for their own money. They were able to get their dollars to purchase the equipment, and DJI can be bought this way too, that they don't have to go through the federal, beg for money from the feds, if you will. So we have about 6 other, Dragonfish sales that are happening here within the next 2 months here in the U.S. that don't necessarily meet, the requirements for the federal grant or federal monies. And that's where that challenge comes into a play with a lot of agencies. I made my argument here in Utah, if they decided to go down this route with any of these other agencies here in Utah, and said, hey, if you guys are going to force people to buy blue, then you better damn well increase their budgets in order to afford blue or NDAA. If that's what you're going to require them to do, they have to have their budgets higher. So that's just my argument there.
Great point. So I think we got time for one more question, and it's an awesome one. So speaking of the future, what new sub-industries will we see developing in the next 5 years? You mentioned a couple: drone logistics and DFR. What others can we hope to see emerge? How can you be sure they're promising, and how should we position ourselves to be in the path of these opportunities when these sub-industries begin expanding and showing face for the first time? Oh, that's a good question. So
we'll let
who
Wayne
wants
go
to tackle
first.
that one?
Go ahead,
I
Wayne.
mean, there's so many different ways it could go as the regulations, at least in the U.S., catch up to technology. I mean, we could take again sub industries within delivery, package delivery, taking we're not talking like Amazon. We're talking more business to business, thinking bike messenger style delivery that you would have in like New York or other cities now could be done with drone. So we look at agricultural business and what can evolve there. We're seeing it now with better platforms for aerial spraying, for crop monitoring. increasing yield there on our crops as we've had farmland decrease around the world. Now we're hopefully finding better ways we can increase that yield. So I see a lot of just, within an industry, maybe more like smaller businesses can start to develop and flourish.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen. Sorry. Go ahead, quick, John.
No, real quick. So I think the great question there of the question was, how can you be sure that they are promising? How can you be sure that they're going to work out? And for us as an industry players to be in line of when these things kind of mature and go to where they're supposed to go. That is a incredibly fantastic question, because when I started 23 years ago making stuff and just making things, all of a sudden people were like, hey, that's really cool. I would like to buy that to do this, whatever you just invented. And I was like, sure, oh my God, somebody wants to buy something because of something I made in my basement and thought it was pretty fun. Well, DJI comes along and, really made the game changer, when they came out with the Phantom series versus any of the Spreading Wings series. These are definitely for hobbyists, build it, put it together, and create and make. However, when the Phantom came out, I can promise you that it was not in their ecosystem to see how many different things people could do with a camera on a flying platform. They had no idea that this was going to be utilized in the now probably 120 different jobs and verticals that drones are being applied for today. 120. We always just isolated to, agriculture or industry inspection or public safety. That's only 3 of 120. So there's many different types of things that we can do with drones. And it's a great question, because I still think that this is still evolving to some degree. I don't think we've hit the part of every day the K9 unit goes out. So everybody's got to have a K9 unit. Everybody's got to have a K9 training. Everybody's got to have K9 training areas, for public safety. K9s by themselves have their own specific things that they're going to be deployed and do. But eventually we'll just have drones. We don't do anything without the drones in public safety. Like we don't go in the house without the drone going first. We don't, send people without the drone going first. So the drone's going to be, the everyday thing that everybody gets used to using. We're still far from that, really far from that, of the everyday, you got to have it kind of thing. However, I think that there are some things that have been proven out as we continue on that I think we'll see more industry stepping into what else can the drone do versus it is doing, So, I don't know. Kevin's going to be a crazy future, right. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
It is.
And I'm glad I have the history that I have, to see it, to watch it,
So I think, see it, watch it, i.e. the rest of Tech Week. You'll get a chance to see some great panels. We'll give you a heads up. We'll talk about it. John, you're being attacked by a wolf or something there. I hope you survive. We will be having the opportunity for you to get hands-on with a lot of these products. So we will be having our third annual roadshow. We'll be coming to Calgary and Edmonton, May 1st and 2nd. I believe that Chief Baker is making his first appearance in the great state, the Wild Rose state of Alberta, for those events. So that'll be very exciting. So see you, Chief. For the rest of it this year, we'll be announcing it officially, but the 19th and 20th of June is the first annual remotely operated and autonomous robotics conference here in Ontario. It's going to be in Oshawa, just east of Toronto. That is, again, Wednesday, Thursday, June 19th and 20th. That is sponsored by DJI, Boston Dynamics, and AVSS. So we're expecting several hundred people and about 20 vendors for 2 days of incredible panels and things like that. I believe John actually has it on his calendar here, so he will hopefully be making a return voyage, along with Chief Baker and his friends from the DJI squad and Boston Dynamics and Josh and the team. So more about that this week. So everybody, sorry we went a bit over. Sorry we started a bit late. But we always finish strong as we do, and we'll look forward to seeing you over the course of the rest of the week. And thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.